This is Paul Crammy. We're ready for the second session of this two-part series. On Tuesday, we talked about logging in and out of control, reviewed the home screen, talked about using Explorer to find estimates and orders, reviewed a few of the user options that you can tailor the system to your preferences, looked at the activity manager or calendar so you can schedule meetings and appointments and follow-up phone calls. Today we're going to do more examples. We're going to start off by adding a new customer to the database in Contacts. We'll review that process, and then we'll actually create an estimate and review what it looks like and some of the things that you can do with estimates. And then we'll convert that estimate to an order. And then we're going to step back and we're going to talk about statuses. Statuses in the context of estimates and statuses in the context of orders. And then we'll start to wind down by talking about the payment function and the different payment options you have. And then we'll talk about how you can set up your own private set of quick products that you will likely use on a repetitive basis. And then we'll wrap up today talking about the print options. And the print options really are somewhat the same, whether it's an invoice or an estimate or just a simple report, but each of them have different options that make them a little bit different as far as what your choices are. Now I'm going to switch screens, and I'm over in Control now. Everybody should be seeing Control.
Yes, we can, Paul.
Now we're going to begin. The process of entering a new company can either be done on the Navigator section of the home screen, but more than likely you're going to use up in the taskbar, you're going to use New, and then you're going to say New Company. So that's where we're going to begin. And now what it's going to be doing is bringing up the template for a new company. Now, in this particular version of the system, it may not be the same for everybody. The yellow here indicates that it's a mandatory field, and not all of them will be. One of the other versions of the system has a different way of showing mandatory fields. Mandatory fields, if you go to save something and you have a mandatory field, you will get a prompt to do that. So what I'm going to do is enter a company name. I'm just going to call it so I can get a different spelling. Okay, so now I've entered the company name that I want. Over here to the right, you can choose check name, and that will just simply go out and tell you whether or not that company already exists. So avoiding, duplicating a company. Now the check marks here it's going to assume that it's active, and active means that you can choose it to create an estimate or to create an order. Down the line, over time, you'll have companies that will likely go out of business. And then what you would do would be to come in here and edit it and remove the check mark for active. That physically keeps it in the system, but you can no longer create estimates and orders for that particular customer. A new company that you're entering is going to begin life as a prospect. And what that means is that there aren't any estimates or orders. Once you get an estimate or an order, then it will become a client. Now, you can enter a company as a vendor. You can enter a company as a vendor and a prospect or a client. So they can be both, or they can be one or the other. They can be just a personal one, but the common ones that you're going to be dealing with most likely are the prospect and the client. Now I'm going to move out here to the right and talk about these three fields up that you see up in the top right-hand corner. The pricing level, when you see the word standard, what that means is that it's normal pricing, or put it in a numerical form, it's 100% pricing. So the system will go through the calculations to based on what it is that you're doing, how many, how big, what materials, how much labor is involved, how much equipment time is involved, and then it will calculate the price. That price is the standard price. Now, pricing levels that are greater than 100%, 105, 110, 115, and you can have pricing levels that are less than 100%. So the 105, 110, 115, any of those that exceed 100%, you're charging that customer a premium. Scenarios that you might want to do that would be if the salesperson that's doing the quote is on a commission basis, you may charge them additional premium to compensate for the for the commission that will be paid. You may have a customer that you simply provide extra special services, and you could charge a premium for that service. Those that are under 100%. Think of those as ones that are wholesale type customers, where you're selling them goods and services at a reduced price with the expectation that they're going to come back and charge their customer a little bit more than that. So pricing levels apply to every line item in the estimate or in the order. The next one to talk about is promotion. Think of promotion as a form of discount. Now, you can grant that promotion as a dollar value off or as a percent off. And if it's a percent off, it's off of every line item in the estimate or in the order. If it's a dollar value off, then it's a single item for the value that is going to reduce the price. And you can add promotions, as many as you want. The other thing that's unique about promotions is, go here and as if we're going to add a new one, they can always be valid, so there's no start and no end point. You can have a promotion, which is really the intent of promotion. It's a marketing initiative where you may have a promotion that's active from December 1st through the end of the month. So it's a month-long promotion. And then after that, you can no longer choose that particular promotion. You can have a promotion that's just simply for tracking. It has no reduction, no adjustment in the price. So it's just something that you're promoting, and you want to be able to track it. This is where you would enter if it's a percentage off, and this is where you would enter it if it's a dollar value off. And if it's a dollar value off, then you have to specify what expense in the system that is going to retain, where that cost is going to be recorded. Now, the last one.
Paul, before you move off of this screen, we do have a question.
Okay.
Did you want the question now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, the question is from Joe, and Joe, I have unmuted you. The question is, can you delete a company instead of just making that company inactive?
I think the answer is technically no. But more important than that is it's not something that you would want to do. You need to be able to have that history in the system. It's far, far better to just simply mark them inactive and not even think in terms of physically removing them. If there's a way to physically remove, I'm not familiar with what that is, but I think the answer is no. Does that help, Joe?
Yes, it does. It does.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to move on here. I'm going to try to keep track of questions coming in visually myself. Next thing I want to talk about is pricing plans. This is something that's a little bit more complex, but think of it this way. You have one or more products that have their standard formula and how they work and how they calculate the price. You can create a pricing plan and associate that with one or more products. And how that product works then for that pricing plan would be different than how it works in the default scenario. So the concept behind the pricing plan is that you say, this product, that product, the third product, the fourth product, I want to be able to use this pricing plan. Then the concept would extend backwards to one or more customers. And you would say, I want this customer, I want a second customer to use this pricing plan anytime one of the products is used. So a pricing plan is a combination of a product or products and a combination of one or more customers, and it will alter how that pricing works. I don't know that I've got, so here I've got some pricing plans that I put in here for just experimental purposes. Here's one that's going to operate in a different way because of implementing quantity discounting. Here's one that I entered that's going to work a different way for vehicle wraps. Here's one that's going to operate a different way for area based on area consumption. And then all of these plans, these 4 or 5 plans that I have here, are also associated with one or more products, and they're associated with one or more customers. Okay, so if I wanted this customer to use this pricing plan, I would just simply select it. Okay, it's a little bit more of a complex thing, so I don't want to go into depth on it, but it's a very, very powerful feature when you have unique attributes about a particular customer or a set of customers, where you have to be able to have the pricing work differently for those for those customers. Now, moving down here to these other UDF tabs, I'm going to talk about the first 3. The first one that we're looking at is just general company information. A company can be a subsidiary of another. Think of it as you can have a holding company, and then you can have one or more subsidiaries of that company. So if I look at this, I can make this customer a subsidiary of one of these other 3. That's the concept. And it's primarily for reporting purposes where that is advantageous. So the fields that are not yellow are not mandatory. So you can enter a department number, you can put the company's web address in there. This is where you designate who the primary salesperson within the shop, who that person is, and it defaults to a person or a general one like this one, and the default can be changed in some of the settings. Over here to the right is we strongly recommend that you capture the industry that this particular customer belongs to. And there's a long list of industries that are predefined. You can come in and add new industries, or you can just edit the entire list and in essence create your own unique in a set of industries. The importance of this is more from a marketing perspective, okay? So for doing marketing initiatives, down the line where you want to focus on a particular industry at a particular time of the year, having that information recorded at the company level will facilitate that kind of activity. Origin is how did this customer come to you this very first time? Did they just simply walk in the door? The result of email? Is it a result of an internet? Is it a result of networking? And on. Again, you can add to this list or you can completely replace it. Region is not, let me back up on the origin. It's important also from a marketing standpoint. Now, region is, I don't know that there are any populated in here. I would think of that as the time zone that you would be in, okay? Now, also related to the company, they can have a billing address. They can have one or more shipping addresses. And if you need to add more than a billing and a single shipping address, then you just simply select new, and you can have a second or third or fourth address in there. So this is the address of the company, zip code, and the other fields that are designated here. Over on the right, some companies will use POs, and if they do use a PO, then you can put a check mark here and say that you cannot save an order without entering the PO number. And then you can put in here what the starting number is, or the standing PO number that they might use. This is a very, very important field right here, the default tax class. The tax class means what are the different tax entities that will apply to a particular company and a particular order. So my location is the taxes that apply based on where your business is located. So it's your tax combination. So the tax class will consist typically of a statewide tax. It may consist of a state plus a county tax. It may consist of a state and a county and a municipal tax. And in a few areas of the country, it may be a state, a county, a city, and a transportation tax or an entertainment tax. So the tax classes can be comprehensive. The system is going to assume when you enter a new one that they're in the default tax class. If you have others, then you define those when you're in the accounting setup, and it might be for a different county, state combination, a city, county, state combination, or common ones that are nonprofit, and another common one is you're doing something for out of state.
Paul, can I just interrupt you a second? Your audio is a little bit garbled. I'm having trouble hearing you. I don't know if it's a different setup for you.
It is, but it's not. It hasn't acted up. So I'm going to try to speak slower and do a little bit more pausing. But thanks for reminding me of it. It did it once on Tuesday. But,
it's getting pretty bad. It's getting pretty bad right now.
Okay, because it looks solid green here. That's what I'm seeing. Anyway, I'll try to slow down. So the default is your location. The tax exempt is whether they're taxable or if they're not taxable. In what states might they be taxable? You can put notes down here at the bottom or flags. Might be a flag that says, I don't want this particular customer, I don't want you to accept checks. So you can use that kind of as a warning to you to be cautious in certain situations. Now, moving on to the contacts. Every customer has to have at least one contact. The mandatory requirement is that it has to have a last name. I strongly encourage you to always enter the first and last name. Now, every customer has to have a contact that is the primary. Primary means that when you do an order or an estimate, it's assuming that it is that primary contact that's placing the order. And everybody must have a billing contact. If you do statements, the billing contact would be the recipient of that statement. The billing, a contact can be the same. It can be both primary and billing. And you may, if you have 3 or 4 or 5 contacts, some won't be either. But one has to be primary and one has to be a billing. The individual contacts can have their own salesperson. It's going to assume that it's a company, but it can be different. You can record birth date if you're so inclined. I strongly recommend that you always enter the email. Again, the reason for that is twofold. One is if you do that, you can automate the emailing of invoices or estimates to a customer. And equally important is that it will facilitate marketing initiatives where you've captured the email.
Paul, your audio is getting bad again. It got better, but now it's getting bad again. Not sure. Is there something that you can check with your connection?
It looks solid as a rock, Linda. That's I'm going to jump off, and then I'm going to come back.
Apologize, everybody, for the inconvenience.
Yeah, there was just a warning. Can you hear me now, Linda?
I can.
There was a warning from GoToWebinar of audio issues.
Okay, so it's GoToWebinar that's having the issue.
Yeah, I saw it when I switched over to the phone and then back. It says that there was a warning there. So I'm going to try to really go slow and not.
I think it's worse now. Are you on a phone connection or a microphone?
No, I'm on my iPod.
It's pretty bad.
Through the computer. Let me come in.
Try with the phone.
That's what I'm going to do. Do you have the phone number there handy, Linda? I'm going to flip over to the phone number, and then I'm going to call in.
I think it's on the interface when you click on phone. Sorry, everyone. I know it's very difficult to hear.
Linda, can you hear me?
That's so much better, Paul. Thank you.
Okay. Hang on a second. I've got to get these put away. Sorry, everybody. Now I'm going to talk about the we've talked about the phone number and all that stuff. The individual contacts will normally have the same address as the company, but they don't need to. Okay, so you can up here under general, that's what we're looking at. So billing address, put that in if you want. The financial tab is you may or may not use it. The system is going to assume that a customer is going to be a cash customer. The implication of that is that you're expecting that order to be paid in full, either at the time that the order is placed or at minimum when it's picked up or delivered or you've done the install. There are terms that can be granted. You can have somebody that's on a net 15, a net 30. I've seen others that do a net 45. That's something that it would be discretionary for you to set up payment terms other than maybe what these are that are here. Now, this is just me speaking as a former owner. If you grant charge privileges to a customer, I strongly encourage you to have a procedure where you have a credit authorization form. So if they ask you if we can be on net 30 or net 15, give them that application, credit application, fill it out, then you make a decision on you're going to grant or not grant that. If you do, you would put a check mark here, and then you would decide what kind of credit limit you want, $500, $600, $1,000. So obviously the idea would be that you know the customer a little bit and use judgment. You can assign a credit number if you want to, and then you can put a date in here of when that approval was granted. Now, I periodically reviewed that every year. There are reports that show who has credit terms and when they expire. Now, if they have credit terms of, say, $500, the system will give you a prompt if you attempt to save an order that has a value that will put you in excess of that credit limit. It won't prevent you from doing that, but it will prompt you, and you have to acknowledge that that is what you've authorized to be done. Okay. So now we've talked about the contacts, we've talked about the financial tab. Now I'm going to save this so that I violated my own comments earlier. I'm just going to pick some in here that are relevant. Go to the see which other ones. Primary. I didn't put a name in there. Okay, I've added the company, okay? Now we're going to switch over and I'm going to do an estimate. Start off by doing an estimate. To do that, I can either choose new estimate here from the navigation screen on the home screen, or I more likely will come up to new, and then I'm going to say new estimate. Now it's bringing up the pricing form or the estimate entry form. First of all, you have to choose the company. Who are you doing it? Who is requesting this? Now notice that the company that I just entered and saved is not on the list. That's because of existing orders or estimates. So if I choose Prospect over here in this lower area, now you'll see that that customer is there. So I would select it and say OK. I was hitting the wrong darn button, excuse me. There we go. Now the description is mandatory. I'm just putting something in there to populate it. You can also have pricing levels and promotions that apply to this estimate or this order, okay? And it would be separate and distinct than from what might be in the company record. So it's the same list for both of those. Once you've entered the company and the description, now you're ready to enter one or more line items, okay? So I'm going to come over here and just select a digital print. And let's say that we're going to do that on a roll printer. And we're going to do 4 items. Let's do a 4-foot by 10-foot off of the printer, and let's do it on a banner material, digital banner material, and then let's do a heavy one, a 22-ounce banner material. Now, if I wanted to, I could come over here and enter these other design elements, or painting, or finishing, or laminating, or mounting, or cutting it to size. So let's go ahead and put a cut on that, and also design. Now it's added that to the price. So we've got one line item at this point that consists of 4 digital prints, 4 by 10 on banner material. We're charging for some cutting to cut them to size, and we've charged a minimal amount for design work. Now I could come in and add as many other line items as I want. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to add one more product. Let's do one. Let's do 18 by 24 cut vinyl. Second one, and I'm going to mount this, and I'm going to mount it to by hand, and I'm going to mount it to a Coroplast material. I'm going to do more than one so we can. So now I've got line. I want to illustrate something. This is the reason I did this. So we got line 1. That's called a parent line item. Then I have a child line item. That's the 1A. And I have a second child item. That's 1B. This one says that it is a third child item with a child of a child underneath it, okay? So it's 2 levels down. Now, if I want that one to be a primary, you've got demote and promote up here in the top area where the mouse is showing. If I choose promote, Now that is going to change this one entry and the one below it so that it is a second primary. And that primary has its own child. Now I could have pushed all of these up so all 5 of them would have been primary. I could have left it the way it was, and it would appear to the customer in the estimate that they would get as if it was a single line item. Okay? Now I'm going to go to, so we've got the items, we've got the company, and we've got the totals. We're just about done setting up and saving this estimate. If it's got a due date for a proof, it'll calculate the default, or you can just choose your own. If it's got a specific due date, which is mandatory, you can put that in. This is the station. It's not necessarily, you could say that it's pending, meaning that it's waiting for approval by the customer. And the origin is the origin of this particular estimate itself. And maybe it was a referral. Now it's showing you what the total price is over here and what the taxes are that apply. Now I'm going to go back to the line items for a second because I want to talk about another feature of the system that's very, very powerful, and it's called variations. If you look down at the bottom, you'll see something called variation 1. And let's rename that to something that's a little bit more meaningful. Let's call this option 1, okay, to the customer. Now it's simply renamed that. If you want to give the customer a choice, then you can use the variation feature, and it's going to appear to the customer as if it's a second or separate estimate altogether. And to do that, I can do it in several different ways. One, I can simply clone this entire set of 5 items. Or if I wanted to do it in a more deliberate fashion, I could just say add. Then I would manually start entering the line items themselves. So to make it simple, I'm going to use clone. And now it's generating that other one. So I'm going to rename this one to option 2. So now they have unique names. And let's say that the difference is that on this cut vinyl, we want to do that one for 5 items instead of 10. And this one, we want to do it for, let's do 8 instead of 4. So that's the only difference is the customer said, hey, I like 2 quotes, one for banners where we're doing 8, and second one where we're doing 4, and on the cut vinyl where we're doing 1 or 5, okay? Now I'm ready to save that. So we've completed all of the items for both options, and we're now ready to save that. So I'm going to go up to the action bar and say I'm going to save that as an estimate. Now, after this is saved, which it is, it's now in a pending status, and it's assigned an estimate number 533. Okay? This quick look at what that looks like and what the customer would see. Okay, these are different options. I'll come back to those in a bit. I mostly just want you to see what it looks like when you've given a customer a choice through the variation feature. Make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so it's estimate number 533, and this is what I named the first option, is number 1. It shows the digital prints, 4 of them, shows the cut vinyl, 10 of them, and the if we slide the slider bar all the way down, you'll see the total of that item, of both of them. Okay. Now, if we go to the second page, because all of the variations will start on a new page. So here's the second one. Here's the one for quantity of 8, quantity of 8, and quantity of 5, and it has its total at the bottom. Okay, $1,300, and then the fourth one, or the other quantity for option 1. So the variations is a very, very important feature. Now, it has to be activated in your system before you can do that. So you're going to come up to Setup and System Setup, and then you're going to go to Orders. In the left-hand column, go to Orders, and I want estimates. I'm going to edit this so you can see it. This second option right here has to be checked in order for you to be able to do variations in an estimate. Okay, if it's not set, then you have to edit this and put a check mark on it, and then save it. And again, I did that by going to Setup, System Setup. That's where this is. Then I came down inside of Orders, Estimates, and Service Tickets. I chose Estimates, and that's where I found this option that has to be turned on. Now, let's pause and see if we've got some questions before I go to the next step.
I'm not showing any questions at this time.
Okay, hi Annette.
Okay. Hi Paul. Thanks.
Okay, let's say that I'm going to close this. Let's say that a couple of days after the estimate was generated, the customer calls you back and say, I'm ready to move forward with and have you do this project. So you're going to have to find the estimate. So if you know the company, you would probably select the company. We have to look at prospects because they don't have an order yet, and that's the customer that we want. Now, if you recall from Tuesday's session, we talked about the Sub Explorer. So if I chose View Estimate for this new company that we added today, new employee, and now we're seeing that estimate down here at the bottom in the Sub Explorer screen. You have a couple of options. One, if you need to edit that order before you do anything, then you would just simply select it and double click it and open it. So you could double click it to open it. If I use a right mouse click, I could say open. So you have a couple of ways that you can begin. If you don't need to edit the order or the estimate, then you would have a couple of options as well. One is that I could do a right mouse click and say I want to convert it to an order right from the Explorer screen. I could have opened it and come over to the action toolbar and say I want to convert it. So in the interest of time, that's what I'm going to do, okay? So I say I want to convert it. This is a couple of warnings that we're going to see. This just says that they don't have any kind of a credit limit. And allow this estimate to be converted anyway. I'm going to say yes. Now it's giving me some other choices. This is simply, the yes, no is a confirmation that I want to convert this to an order. Yes, I do. No, I don't. If I am going to proceed with a converting, then these two little check boxes here are potentially important. Look first, before I answer one, look at these little padlocks over here on line 1 and 2. Right now they're unlocked. If I put a check mark here, after the conversion takes place to the order, there will be padlocks. Those padlocks will be closed, which means that you have to have the privileges assigned to you in order to unlock them and make any changes. So a check mark there will put a padlock on the those two line items when the conversion is completed. This one says after the conversion, but before the order is saved, I want to make a change. If you leave the check mark off and go ahead with the conversion, then it's going to go right straight through and end up being saved as an order. So I'm going to leave both check marks off, and I'm going to say yes, I want to proceed. Now the next thing that it's going to prompt me is, do I want to post a payment? I missed a step. Because we're dealing with an estimate that has variations, we have to choose which variation we want. So let's say that the customer said, I want to really do the second one. So we choose that one is the variation that we're going to use. Now pay really close attention to the order of things down here, okay? That's 1 and then 2. But we're converting number 2. So now it's in the process of converting that estimate to an order. Okay, there we go. Would you like to post a deposit? I'm going to say no. Now it's an order 1023, and it's in work in process. Notice over here in the top left, it says order number 1023 was originated from estimate number 533. That's that's an aid to help you know where something came from. So now if we go ahead and preview this, we would see what the invoice would look like. And again, I'm just going to do a quick preview of it, and then we'll talk about the print towards the end. Preview options, and now we're going to see that second item, that second variation is what is going to be the order that we're going to end up having. Okay? Now, I want to, with both of these on the screen, I want to go back to the back to Explore, and I want to look at that estimate that we just, it says that here's number 533, and that it was converted. If I open that, notice that these two reversed. This is the primary estimate that was converted. Now, you cannot edit this converted estimate at all. So if you wanted to preserve it and use it again, you would clone it and make a brand new estimate out of it. But you cannot edit and change a converted estimate. Okay. Now we're ready to talk about statuses.
So we have one question. I'm
Okay.
sorry. We have a question from Joe.
Okay.
When you want to convert and question answered. Okay, she says that the question was answered. We're good. Okay, thanks. Thanks.
Let's
Okay.
talk about stat. You got more?
Nope, we're good right now. It looks like. Thank you.
So, first of all, I'm gonna open up Explore for estimates, and I'm gonna do another one for orders. So we got both of them here. Now, let's talk about the estimates first. Every estimate has a status, and it's going to begin its life as pending. You can deliberately change the status to lost or void. Now, what that means is that lost implies, the intent of it is that the customer elected not to move forward with that project. So we'll do that on one. And are you sure? Yes. So now now you can choose a reason that they chose not to move forward. Let's say that they chose a competitor. So now the status is lost, and the next column over is referred to as station. So within this lost status was one or more stations, and we chose lost to a competitor. Now notice that in pending, these have different stations. So a station within a status is a further delineation of where this pending estimate is as far as walking through and hopefully getting to the point where it's going to convert to an order. So if we have heard from the customer on this one, and they want to, we need to change the the station of it to something that's different. I would come down to changing station, go over to pending, and let's say that they expect that they're going to get approval next week to go forward. So I've changed the station. So the statuses for estimates are pending, lost, converted, or voided. Voided is you made the decision that the likelihood of this going forward to an order is slim to none. So you're deliberately changing the status of that one to lost. Or not lost, voided. And if that's what I want to do, and this is going to, I don't remember if it will prompt me for a station or not. Yep, it does. Let's say that we never heard back from the customer. Okay? So statuses for estimates: pending, lost, converted, or voided. And then each of those statuses has a different set of stations. Now, if we look at orders, similar concept. The status of orders, they're going to begin as work in process. Built indicates that the work is done and it's ready to be delivered, it's ready to be installed, it's ready to be picked up, like that. The third is that when the customer takes possession of the project, either because it's installed or you shipped it or you delivered it or they came in and picked it up, that becomes a sale. That's when the full financial impact of the order takes place. You're going to see the sales tax is going to be triggered. You're going to see the sales for the day reflect the different products that were involved in the project. But if it's in a sale status, that means that they owe you money. So if we look at this estimate number or order number 1010 over here, it's in sale status, and it's because they still owe $555. So the customer has the goods, but they owe you money, and from a financial standpoint, the taxes have been triggered, the sales reflected, but they owe you money, and that's going to be reflected in your accounts receivable balance. Now, if it's closed, they have their goods, and you have your money, so everybody's happy. Closed, there's no balance due. So an order can go straight to closed if they've paid in advance and you mark it as a sale. If they owe you money, it's going to stay as sale, and then the account receivable is going to be triggered so that it will show up on the balance sheet. So WIP, built, sale, closed, and then if an order is, you've started it and for some reason you've decided that it's not going to come to fruition, I can select it, do a right mouse click, and change the status. I need to open it just a second. To void it, I'm going to use the void over here in the action toolbar and say that that's not going to happen. Okay. Now, if they had paid in advance for part of it, then that payment would have changed so that it becomes a customer credit. Okay, we're going to run over. If I'm ready to keep going if we want. If anybody needs to drop off, I understand.
We do have a question from Ava.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you track your job? Can we track the order by which department has it?
Which department in the production cycle? Is that what she's asking?
Hold on, let me see if I can, 1 second. Hello, Ava? Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah, if the station could be, we look at built, this indirectly could be related to where it is in the process. So it could equate somewhat to a department. If we look at one that's in WIP and we want to see a little bit more, the stations for WIP would very much lean towards a department orientation. It's being designed. It's in the printing process. It's in the vinyl department. It's being fabricated. It's being finished. It's done and it's ready for QA. So stations very, very much could be related to, from a department perspective, where it is in your shop. Okay? That help, Ava?
Can we edit stations? Edit the stations?
Absolutely, yes. I have to dust off my cobwebs. I think it's in the I may have to get back. The answer is yes. I can't recall exactly where that is right now, but between myself and Annette, we'll try to get an answer back to you. But yes, you can change the stations, edit them, and that applies both for orders and for estimates. Now I've got two things that I want to finish up on. One is payments. So when you're getting ready to post a payment, you can either post it at the time that the order is being saved, but in either, or you can do it after the fact, and it's going to bring up the payment screen. So if you know the company, you can enter the company. If you know the order, you can enter the order. I'm going to enter a company. And to say that that one. All right, this is the company that we just created today. And they have one open invoice. Okay? So if that's the one that's going to be paid, this assumes that it's going to be paid in full. If it's not going to be paid in full, we could put in the amount that's going to be paid. And now we're down here at the bottom, and we choose how it's going to be paid. Cash and checks are very straightforward. You're going to collect cash from them. They're going to give you a check. If they're going to pay by check, you would enter the check number and any notes that you want to add. And then you can record that payment. Okay? And now it says that the payment is successful. Let's come back and do that again for the same customer. There's the same one. Now it's showing the balance due. Let's do $100 in cash. Put a tracking number if there was one, and record it. So cash and checks are straightforward. The credit cards, I can't demonstrate that here because it depends on, you can get set up within Control with the help of the tech staff so that you can have Control directly get authorization from the credit card, the bank of the credit card holder, and it's posted online directly through Control. To do that, you need to have the proper credentials need to be set up so that Control can do that. if that is set up, when you send an invoice to the customer, they have the choice of paying online, either by check or ACH or credit card. But that implies that the authorization mechanism is set up to do that. If you have a different processor that's separate from control, then you can still post credit cards, but you also, as a second step, have to process the transaction through the terminal of your credit card processor. So it can be done by being set up in control as a one-step process. If you already have a merchant and you're comfortable with that, that's perfectly fine. Then the payments within control become a two-step process, and they can't initiate payment online. Okay, so I threw a lot at you on the payment side. For the most part, it's simple and straightforward, but you need to reach out to your consultant or the tech staff if you want to be able to automatically post credit card payments. Now, to finish up is Quick Products. You can customize this list to suit your preferences. It's the concept would be this would represent the product I'm generally going to use. Okay. Now, to do that, you would go to Setup and Pricing Setup and All Pricing. And again, you have to have the security privileges in order to do this. So the Quick Products over there and here on the left, clear at the bottom, brings up this list. Okay, so I've created Quick Products for 1, 2, 3, down through the 7th item, 8th, 9th, all the way down for 12. And if you want to change that, you would get into the edit mode, and I can add new ones. If I no longer want this one, to be on the Quick Products, I can simply put the X and save it. Then that's going to disappear from the list. If I don't want that one, I can remove it, and it will come out of the list. Now I could delete it and come back and reuse it for a different product. Okay, so the Quick Products may or may not be of real interest to you, but if it is, if you don't have privileges, you would have to initiate, get help to get in and set up your Quick Products. Print options. This is true whether you're printing an estimate. If you go to the print function, everything is that I'm going to highlight first is the same, whether it's an estimate that you're printing, an order that you're printing, or a simple report that you're printing. And the things that are the same are the preview up here at the top, the printer that you're going to use, if the customer or if there is an email that's evolved for, in the case of an order or an estimate, if the contact has an email that you've saved, that email will be pre-populated right here. If it's not pre-populated, then you can go here to show detail and enter the email address for this one occurrence. Saving, what that means is that you can save a copy of the estimate or of the order at a location that you would choose, okay? That's the destination, and this is the name that I want that to be, how I want it to be identified. So if I want to change that, I would come in and show detail. Here is where I choose the format of what I want it to be saved as a PDF file. This is how I want it to be named. And then notice you got merge fields. And again, this applies whether it's an estimate or an order. You can apply merge fields. So previously, I had added that I wanted it to be called invoice, and then this thing with the two little less than symbols is a merge field that I selected out of orders and order invoice number, okay? Now I could have put in a company name, I could have put in a contact name. So you can customize the file name both for orders and for estimates, and then the path. This path is unique in my system because I'm operating in the cloud. So the TS client is bringing it back to my local computer inside a folder called Report Export. If you were not in a cloud environment, the default would have already been there, and it would save it in Report Export within where the server is located. Okay? Lastly, there are options. Options are going to be unique for estimates. They're going to be different than orders. And when you're printing a report, the options will be significantly different. Think of the options as a means of saying what I want to appear or what I don't want to appear. So here I've said I want the order notes to appear. I want the shipping address to appear. I want to show discounts, and so on, okay? If this were an estimate that we were looking at, the options are going to be different. All of the other buttons are going to be the same, but the estimate options are different. Here it says that I've got variations enabled. I want the totals to print. I want to know who it was entered by. I want to show the notes. I want to, I don't want to print. I'm sorry. If with the check mark off, this is going to hide the child items. It's going to roll them up into the parent, and that's what this one is showing. Roll the totals into the parent value, and I want to show discounts. Okay? Let's look at one more item, and that's under just reports. So let's say we're looking at a let's look at a sales report, okay? You're going to see much the same thing. The printer, the email, the save, all of that is going to be the same. The options will be very different. And in this case, the items down here are going to be unique to the report that you're generating. So the idea of this print template is for you to choose what is appropriate for whatever it is that you're generating, whether it's an estimate, an order, or you're printing a specific report. So for example, this sales says that I'm going to do it for all customers. I want to do the date range, so it's this calendar year. And those would be the primary ones for this particular report. Other reports are going to be different. Now, the items across the bottom are the same, have the same function, whether you're printing a report, whether you're printing an estimate, whether you're printing an email or an order. You can preview it, see it on the screen, and then take action. You can send it directly to the printer. You can automatically email it, manually have the system email it, or you can say, I want to save it as based on what the parameters were to save it. So think of these as you're going to choose one of these four for the action that you want to trigger. Okay, I've finished what I have. Are there any closing questions? And again, I apologize for the audio stuff today.
I don't see any closing questions.
All right. Everybody have a wonderful holiday season coming up, and maybe after Christmas, and if not, maybe we'll talk to you again after the first of the year. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thanks, bye-bye.